And joining us now to talk weather this week, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient. Eric, hope you had a great weekend. It sounded like, though, a lot of us were going to be turning up the heat here across the country as we start this week, Eric.
Yeah, turning up the heat as we turn down the AC, right? I mean, it's just going to be really quite hot. I was looking this morning. We had 23 states in some form of heat advisory or heat watch warning. And what's interesting is also this morning here on Monday, there was frost warnings out for Nevada and Oregon. So that just tells you how amplified the jet stream pattern is right now. And boy, it's a major swing of temperatures across the country. Some places in the central United States today will be almost 28 to 30 degrees warmer than normal, versus parts of the Pacific Northwest that might be 15 to 20 degrees colder than normal. So yeah, it's if you flew across the country today, you'd see the full spectrum of what temperatures could deliver.
Definitely. Well, I've heard this term "dome of doom" being thrown out there by a few people here. Are we starting to see that weather pattern shift? I've been hearing kind of the rumblings that we're turning maybe hotter and drier here throughout many parts of the Corn Belt as we get into the back half of this month and into parts of July, Eric.
Yeah, we in the storm chasing community call it the ridge of death. And that's because whenever we get these big ridges of high pressure that set up in the Midwest, storms run the periphery of the ridge and they don't come through the middle. And in the middle, what you typically get is just isolated convection. Okay, so that means just pop up storms that come up on the heat of the day. So the problem there is that you end up developing flash drought situation in certain places. And if you kind of rewind the clock and say, well, who missed out on the rain in the last few weeks? Those are going to be your most vulnerable places going forward. Well, that big ridge we're talking about, it's going to be the areas underneath that are going to see the problem. So that's most of the plains. That's most of the Midwest. It even extends all the way to the East Coast at times. So you ask about the change in the pattern. Oh, we lost a bunch of momentum in the Pacific jet. So it goes from being like a straight line to being all broken up into big troughs and ridges. And you're right. We've been worried about this since January, to be honest, because whenever there's a La Nina, there's a better chance of it happening. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but a better chance that we break up the jet stream pattern to where instead of having heat on the West Coast, we have it in the midsection of the country. So we've now seen that develop here in mid-June. It's going to be a problem for some people, but the second part of your statement is most critical. Does it last into July? And right now there are some early indicators that we could see more often these ridges of high pressure than we see anything else. The pattern is not open and flowing as it once was, and if it gets stuck for too long, I'm really concerned. And to be honest, just to finish this rambling here, it seems now listen to me carefully because I don't want people to misunderstand this. It seems that the pattern since this past fall has been on a 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off kind of setup. Now, why I say don't get me wrong here is that there's no such thing as a duration to a pattern historically. It may just feel that way for a certain amount of time, but we've researched this. There's not like a 6 week magic number, but it feels like it goes in 6 weeks in this configuration. Then we've been for the last 6 weeks in strong zonal jet. And have we just entered a 6 week time period where it gets all bunched up and blocked up? I want to know the answer to that. That's a and I start to see evidence of it, and even the longer range models suggest that it could be the situation. But that's not good news for a lot of folks that are listening to us right now, with the risk of flash drought development this summer.
Well, Eric, thinking about the past couple of weeks, we have seen many areas that have gotten some beneficial rainfall, maybe too much in some cases, but also severe weather. I know we saw some severe weather here this last week and even extending here into the beginning of this week. You mentioned some of those convective storms, those pop up storms that we could see, but I know large hail was a big story throughout parts of the plains here this past week. Talk about some of the severe weather that we've seen here recently.
Yeah, of the three different categories we keep track of: winds, severe winds from storms, tornadoes, and hail. Hail has been the only one that's been below average so far this year. The winds were above normal, the tornado reports were above normal, and then the last 2 weeks, it seems like every storm that comes through is producing golf ball to softball size hail. So that tells me that we've really juiced up the lower levels of the atmosphere, but we've kept deep in the upper troposphere quite cold. That's just a setup for big updrafts that can support hail. And it's not just been in the plains. Yeah, the plains have been hammered with hail, but we've seen it across the eastern Corn Belt. It's been in the south. It's been it was even in Idaho and Washington before all this cold weather came through. So a lot of local damage reports on hail, and that's just starting to kind of freckle the corn belt a bit. What I mean by that is those areas, the damage is going to be irreversible at this point. Will they replant? I mean, it's June 13th, so we have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't like the fact that going forward in the forecast for this week, the one of the bigger threats from the storms is going to continue to be hail.
Yeah, it is going to continue to be hail. We're going to be watching it closely. I know here today, kind of the upper Midwest is where we're seeing some of that activity, and it's looking like it could slip south and east here throughout the day today. So we'll have to be watching that closely. Eric, any other thoughts here on just the weather pattern in the U.S. coming up here the next, say, week to 10 days that really stands out to you?
I'd say the only thing I want folks watching with me in this pattern is to see if we get any sort of shift in the trough that's just off the West Coast. That thing moves, it breaks the whole pattern down across the rest of the United States. And I guess there's a second point. It's we got to watch the tropics too. There is the 30% chance this morning from the National Hurricane Center that something could be brewing down in the tropics. So talking about the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, nothing set in stone yet, but we got to watch it.
Well, and that's something as well too. If we get something that comes up through the Gulf, we've seen this in years past that it could create just, maybe push that ridge out and bring all that moisture, right up the Mississippi River. That is something that we've seen time and time again, Eric.
It is, but predicting one of those things to happen, we kind of only get that about a 5-day window in advance. And at this point, I'm not seeing it right now. I actually see more of the moisture. It's kind of interesting getting funneled into the southwest, where the southwest monsoon's starting to crank up right now.
Eric, as well, real quick, any thoughts, South America? I know we saw some frosts over the weekend, maybe nipping some of the crops in parts of Brazil here over the weekend.
Yeah, southern Brazil, that crop still needs to finish. And they had a frost event in Apache, but in places. Yet to see what kind of damage has been done down there. But it's just another sign that the size of that safrinha crop in South America will likely not be as large as anticipated. And something we're going to have to watch out for when that news kind of hits the markets and the big reports. And I'll say this too, we got to keep a close eye on Europe as well, because while we're seeing heat and drought conditions, there are pockets throughout Europe, including Ukraine, that have also seen similar things setting up here as we work our way through June.
Well, Eric, always fantastic analysis, watching the weather, keeping an eye on things as we get into the heart of the growing season. I know as well you have a great newsletter that folks can check out very easily, can't they, Eric?
Yeah, and we'll make sure and give you that link so folks can get signed up if they'd like. But it's just a daily report, national weather, and it's there when you want it and delete it when you don't. But I'll keep writing them every single morning so you can keep ahead of the weather with me.
Definitely. Well, we'll share that link as well at markettalkag.com. With that, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient. Always appreciate it, sir. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too.